All I've been hearing about the Switch 2 on social media is one side saying the Switch 2 is awful and a waste of money, and the other side saying the Switch 2 is the best console ever made. The truth, however, lies somewhere in between. But does that truth lean more towards it being a waste of money or the best console ever made? Let's find out. So the Switch 2 comes with two new redesigned magnetic Joy-Cons, the Switch 2 tablet of course, a charging brick, charging cable, two magnetic Joy-Con straps, a magnetic Joy-Con grip, and a new dock that sports a fan built in this time. The Joy-Cons magnetically snap to the Switch tablet and it's actually very satisfying to play with. Reminds me of Apple's MagSafe if you have ever owned a MacBook. It feels actually very secure. You won't be able to pull them off very easily unless you actually press the button on the back of the Joy-Cons, which will push them off the tablet just enough to get them removed. Unlike the Switch 1.0, there's no Joy-Con wobble whatsoever. The unit as a whole feels very secure when in portable mode. The Joy-Con straps also magnetically attach and can be used in mouse mode, which we will discuss later in the video. The console this time is actually much bigger. It's about the size of the Steam Deck for comparison, but still very thin and low profile. You shouldn't have too much trouble traveling with it, and they colored the console black with hints of color that pop out. The original Switch was black also, but the Joy-Cons were fully colored, so not too much of a departure, but this aesthetic was definitely done to distinguish itself from its predecessor because its hints of color are actually very mature and refined in my opinion. It doesn't scream kid's toy as much as the OG did, but the hints of blue and red still say I'm fun. So what has Nintendo improved on with this new iteration of the Switch? Well, everything about the Switch 2's design screams refinement. The way the kickstand is tight and snaps tightly to the back of the console reminds me of the feeling you get when you lift the lid of a MacBook. The Joy-Cons don't wobble and snap on so smoothly. The buttons are bigger and feel much nicer. The joysticks, while they aren't Hall effect, are still smoother. It feels much more solid as a whole and really is a well-made device. They also took this design philosophy to the Pro Controller, which by the way, feels great to hold. They added two back buttons, a headphone jack, and the C button, which we'll also discuss a bit later. But yeah, it feels premium in comparison to its predecessor to say the least. However, I am disappointed in Nintendo for their user interface. It's basically the same as the Switch. But really though, it's just lacking some different aesthetics. But we still have no menu music and no custom themes outside of the black or white, and the design is just far too similar. But I do actually love the new sound effects. The display on the Switch 2, however, is a mixed bag for me. The larger size of the display is great. The 1080p resolution is great. The 120Hz refresh rate is great. The G-Sync capability is great. But the display is LCD, and it's not the best quality LCD either. It doesn't have any local dimming, which is a massive departure from the Switch OLED display, which the key feature was contrast. Nintendo obviously did this to save money, and I can't imagine the logistics that would involve an OLED display with the same specs as this one, but man, if they had brought in just a bit better quality LCD with some local dimming, like maybe a mini LED display, which has been on the market for nearly a decade now, they could have killed it with this display. Other channels like Digital Foundry and Monitors Unboxed have pointed out also that the display has really bad response times and ghosting. But the average consumer will most likely only really notice the better resolution and brightness of the display, but for those who are in the know, you get it. The best way to concisely describe the display is 2 steps forwards and 1 big step back. But let's take another look at the new Joy-Cons. The improved haptics on the Joy-Cons are immediately noticeable. The vibration feels much smoother and realistic. However, haptics are practically standard now outside of Xbox not implementing them yet. But the Joy-Cons outside of them being magnetic have a massive new feature: mouse mode. Each Joy-Con has a built-in optical sensor, which with the Joy-Con strap can be used on a desk as a pseudo mouse. Would you really want to do this? Well, I tried it. And to be honest, I would not recommend it. But if it's your only option for a mouse on the Switch, go for it. Personally, a regular keyboard and mouse is superior. This feature feels like something that Nintendo just wanted to squeeze into the handheld to make it a new defining feature. But if we see Nintendo utilize this in the future, maybe I could be proven wrong and it will actually be really useful. So I will keep an open mind for now. Now, the battery life on the Switch 2 is a bit of a weird topic to cover, because there was a software glitch that made the Switch 2 look like it was running out of battery faster than it should, but in theory, you should be getting around 2 to 6.5 hours of game time depending on what you play, which is not bad in my opinion. It's around the same as other handhelds I've reviewed. But Nintendo finally did something fans have been asking for a very long time. And no, I'm not talking about bringing back the virtual console, and no, I'm not talking about Earthbound. They finally added voice chat to a modern Nintendo console. Welcome to the 21st century, Nintendo. But Nintendo, being Nintendo, had to make it a little bit weird. They gave the Switch 2 a dedicated C button, which opens chat. I don't know why, but they highlighted this as if they had invented Discord. Convenient, I guess, but anyways, the Switch 2 comes equipped with a built-in microphone which uses artificial intelligence to filter background noise, and it works. It works. They also put a USB-C port on top of it, which has no HDMI out on it, so it's only used for one singular purpose, and that would be for a webcam. Why did they decide to do this? Well, according to interviews with the designers, they designed the Switch 2 during COVID lockdown and were inspired by them doing work at home with Zoom calls. So they thought basically, hey, wouldn't it be fun to see your friends while you game at home? Well, personally, I do not care for this feature, and the camera at the moment does not run super well, I guess. It's choppy at best. The frame rate is very low. The camera is already announced to be used in Super Mario Party Jamboree DLC, however, so they could implement it in future games. But if I wasn't reviewing the Switch 2, I would skip on this, to be honest. But kind of cool that they designed the whole feature around Zoom calls during COVID, I guess. It's kind of a neat little Easter egg or tidbit. Fun fact, I guess. Yeah. On the other hand, something I couldn't skip on was Mario Kart World, and I'm not here to review the game. If I had to, I would say it's a great pack-in title for the Switch 2 bundle, but not worth $80. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because there's not much on tap here for the Switch 2 right now. Cyberpunk 2077 is the biggest game besides Mario Kart, but if you have any other device, you can already play it there. That's sort of my issue with the Switch 2 right now. It's that most people don't have to play Mario Kart and the other games available at the moment, because you can play these games on other platforms at comparable or better performance. Mario Kart is truly the only incentive, at least for me. Nonetheless, there are some more games coming out soon, like the new Donkey Kong game, which is coming out this month. And also, of course, there are some backwards compatible games that have paid upgrades for the Switch 2, like Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which both looked gorgeous in my opinion. But I hate this practice of paywalling upgraded graphics because I literally just paid to upgrade my device like I would on a PC when I buy a new GPU or CPU, and now they're telling me that I have to pay to see the difference. And no, I'm not excusing Sony for this same idiotic practice. At least if you have Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, you can get this for free. But still, it stinks. Don't get me wrong though. I do appreciate the extra horsepower from the Switch 2. It runs games at 4K resolution with upscaling and 60 FPS when docked. But right now, Switch 1 games, if they are not patched, will not hit 1080p in portable mode, nor will they hit 4K in TV mode. That is at the discretion of the developers to figure out. But I have been impressed with the performance overall, and I think Nvidia's AI upscaler DLSS helps a lot when it comes to getting the resolution up to 4K in games that the Switch 2 in theory shouldn't be able to run at such a high resolution. So at least for now, the novelty of the graphics on the Switch 2 has not worn out yet. Also, I want to add that there are some games that have free patches and you can look those up. Like Mario Odyssey has a free patch, Splatoon 3 has a free patch, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for whatever reason has a free patch. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in there because I know that someone in the comments is going to say something about it. So yeah, there are some free patches and there could be more on the way. Just keep that in mind. But after spending a weekend away with the Switch 2 and having my friends try it out while I was on vacation, I have sort of shifted my perspective on the device as a whole. The Switch 2 itself is not enough to justify owning, at least for me and my casual gamer friends. Mario Kart World is a great start for the Switch 2, don't get me wrong. It's an amazing game. My real ideology behind all this is more around the idea that the Switch 1.0 was most likely never most people's primary console, so games like Cyberpunk and all the other third-party games being upgraded and ported to the Switch 2 isn't as impactful to a large number of gamers unless you seek the novelty of rebuying these games so you can play them portably, or Nintendo Switch was your primary platform of choice. But you know what is impactful? First-party exclusive Nintendo games. Therefore, a lot of people won't immediately appreciate the fruits of Nintendo's labor. The console itself is super well made and designed, and I love the aesthetic and how it feels. It's also, in my opinion, powerful enough, especially if we see some optimizations with Nvidia's DLSS. So overall, I believe the Switch 2 will have a bright future once the games start rolling out. Right now, if you don't need any of the games that are coming out in the present or near future, wait for when the games you can't live without do come out. Then go get your Switch 2. At that point, you might even luck out and get a special edition version of the console for the game that you had been waiting on as a reward for your patience. But that's gonna do it for today's video. I really do enjoy my Switch 2, but I don't think it's a must-have device yet, at least until there's a distinguished library of first-party next-gen exclusives or upgrades available for more games. But regardless, the Switch 2 is selling like crazy right now, so your opinion may differ, and that's cool too. I usually cover handhelds and other gaming tech. It doesn't matter if it's a PC handheld or console like this, so if you are a fan of handhelds, consoles, or gaming tech in general, leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. This has been Killer Cam. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Peace.